G'day watchers, welcome to Perth Watch, your horology channel broadcasting from right here in Perth, Western Australia. Today I am featuring a new brand. This is from Out of Order, damaged in Italy, which is really quite a fascinating concept. A wooden box, real wooden box that we get here. It's probably only about 3.5 because, it is pretty hefty and there is some friction on this. And, before I show you the watch inside, just want to quickly highlight, some of the materials that they've sent. You can probably read a lot of this online if you want to, but I thought I'd just share some of the stuff that they do, which really is quite interesting. Every single model that they've kind of got here in this quick little catalog has interesting stuff, So check it out online if you want to see more about this particular brand. So just getting the watch out here to show you guys now. Before I do that, I'm not going to actually show that manual. It's just a fairly generic multi-caliber manual, but I will show this little bit here, which is actually interesting. This is the, I think, warranty card, or authenticity card, which is actually a solid piece of metal. Really quite interesting, and it actually functions as a bottle opener as well. If you want to actually use it for that. So that was really an interesting little touch that they've gone for there. And now showing you the watch in closer detail. This is the black Trecento, the out of order black Trecento or Trecento. I don't know how you really pronounce that. GMT watch, of course. This is what this is. Now the listing is on the website. You can see multiple different other colors, including I think a limited edition orange dial, which is quite interesting. But I thought I wanted just a unitone bezel, which is why I went for this kind of stealthy black edition here. 1525 USD, which is definitely on the high side, is the retail price of this watch. Okay, now before I move on, let's just screw that crown in. Notice I just left that open. All right, first up, of course, as I usually do, let's talk about movement. Now the movement in here is, what they tell me is an equivalent or a clone of an ETA 2824. This is the Landeron L24 GMT. Now all the data and stats down the left side, they're 26 joules. Of course, it's a high beat and it's got a 40-hour power reserve. The GMT hand, of course, is the fourth hand that you can see there. It's got a quick set date and whatnot. Now the rated accuracy is unknown to me, but in the days I've used it, it's actually not bad. It's running about +8 seconds per day in the roughly 10 days or so that I've had this running so far. So that's actually not bad at all. Okay guys, moving on to the case dimensions now. So this is a fairly classic 40mm diameter case in 316L steel, but of course a treated steel, and we'll go into that in a little bit. 14.2 thick, with calipers. So not too bad, that's kind of okay for a GMT diver style watch. Lug width is 20mm and a lug-to-lug distance of 48mm there between my thumbs. Overall weight with a few links removed is 148 grams on the wrist here, which is, fairly average for a hefty, solid steel dive watch that is 300-meter water resistant. Now the finishing here, of course, is going to be of interest. Now it's got circular brushing on the top and the bottom and long brush on the sides, but in terms of finishing overall, is this patented aging process, and they're out of order aging process where they have distressed the steel, and certain areas like here and perhaps here, for example, you can see there is actually some kind of rust effect that actually has come out of the steel, which is, I think this their claim to fame, or their main point of interest here is this kind of treatment that they put on the watches. That's why they call it, damage in Italy, as that kind of marketing gimmick. Okay, so in terms of the overall construction going on then, we have a screw down case back with the display there that you can see. Okay, they call that gunmetal, so it's a slightly different treatment on the case back there, which really blends in so much so that I didn't notice it at first. It's got a screw down sign crown with a jewel tone there, which is really quite interesting. Not something they really had to do, but they have put a kind of more naked steel insert there with the 000 logo. And with that screw down, that is a full 300-meter diver capability that they've built into this watch. Right, so moving on to the dial, which is also a further point of interest. This is what they describe as a matte black soleil dial, so sun or sunburst, I suppose, in a certain sense. They call it sandblasted as well, which is really that relief effect that you have in that sand type of look there. It's clear in the middle, and it obviously becomes more sand and bumpy on the side. It's got an embossed logo and details in terms of the water resistant and whatnot, and a printed chapter ring around the periphery there that you can see. In terms of the indices, these are applied and they have a stabilized rust effect. So again, further interest here. It's got a brush gunmetal finish on the broad arrow and baton handset with a kind of an arrow for the GMT hand there. So, I think this really has a very Omega feel to me, which is why I gravitated towards this rather than any model with a Mercedes handset. It's got C3 superluminova in all 12 positions, all 4 hands, as well as the full bezel. It's fully lumed, and I'll give you a lume shot right here, of course, to let you see how it looks like in the dark. It isn't the longest lasting lume. I'll be the first to say that. It doesn't really last to the morning, but it does last a couple of hours in the dark if you charge it up. Okay, moving on from that then. So what we have around the dial is a 120 click bi-directional GMT bezel. Okay, so it's a 24-hour bezel. Let's just hear the clicks. That's 5. Very silent, very, very quiet. I think, I'm not even sure whether the camera will pick that up, but you can probably hear that. So it's quite quiet, and I like that it's bi-directional rather than the kind of standard unidirectional that you might sometimes find in some watches that have a kind of keep it as a unidirectional bezel, which doesn't make sense in a GMT watch, in my opinion. And it's good that they haven't really taken that slight shortcut here. A 24-hour bezel, of course, which is kind of a matte black finish, quite nice. It's just aluminium, it's not ceramic, but it's pretty well done, I reckon. And on top of the dial, it's a simple flat sapphire crystal with some anti-reflective coating. Not the best AR, but there is some in there, I think. Okay, moving on to the bracelet then. What we have here is a fully brushed oyster-style bracelet, a completely long brush, solid end links, of course, but only push-pin adjustment, nothing more than that. And I think, unfortunately, a rather OEM-style pressed metal clasp with friction release. No push button there, just a friction release with 4-point micro adjustment that you can see there. Okay, so that's the entire watch. Let's just quickly snap it on the wrist now for a wrist shot for you guys. And there we have it, guys, the out of order black Trecento GMT on my 17-centimeter wrist. That's how that oyster bracelet looks like. And remember, 14.2 millimeter stick and a very classic 48 millimeter lug-to-lug distance there is what this looks like. Okay, so that's the entire description of the watch. What are the positives? What have I found good about this? I think, look, it's an interesting concept. The Out of Order have come up with a fascinating concept of distress watches, patented aging process, is what they called it. This particular model, I like the Omega Planet Ocean style elements that remind me of that. The broad arrow hands, the 12, 6, 9, 3 indices, kind of compass indices, which really, again, I think come from Omega design. The stealth black color palette is pretty cool. Right, of course, not suitable for everything, but I think this one in this look with that kind of faux patina indices and bezel, kind of pretty cool. Actually suits the brand, suits the look. And it makes for an overall quite a pretty watch. It's great details on the dial. Look, I think the dial, the sandblasting, the embossment, the rehaut. I haven't even talked about that. The rehaut, hopefully you can see it there. There's a bit of wording there, and some of it's Italian. The English at the top says, "Let your faults become your beauty." So again, feeding into that brand there. Pretty cool little details there, which is a nice touch. Overall, I would say the case is definitely quite solid. The bezel is quite solid, nice feel there. It's got sapphire, it's got full 300 meters, so definitely, you know, fully sports capable and of course everyday use capable here. That's what you're getting for this watch. The weaknesses, now, I think distressed and coated cases are not to everyone's preference. So I think a lot of their cases are like this, and if you don't like that, yeah, you probably will steer away from this brand. I would say this bracelet feels very, very OEM, you know, very off-the-shelf factory. So unfortunately, they probably had to cut a bit, especially that clasp. That's just not the most classy clasp, I have to say. You know, that's really how this bracelet feels like. And over, you know, the price of 1,500 USD, you know, hope you'd see something better than that. And unfortunately, that feels like there's a bit of a loss of cost there. And in the overall brand and in the overall, you know, this particular watch or any of the other pieces, I think you really have to like the brand and concept and the design, the specific design to splash out for this. That's my feeling. I think something like this will sell a lot better if they can compete to kind of push the price to under the 1,000 mark, you know, just under 1,000. I think they do a lot better. At this stage, at this type of price, I suspect, you know, again, only on sale, you know, you'd probably see this moving in large numbers. That's my feeling, but of course, guys, look forward to your thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you have these watches, if you had any of their brand watches, would love to hear your experience. So there you go, guys, my review of this black Trecento GMT. Thank you for sticking with me, and of course, I'll see you next time.